And I want to do it right. By the way, we are so happy to have you with us today. Really, it's a blessing to have this community represented in a big way. Graham Wood is a senior at San Rafael High School with a passion for social justice and community involvement. He has planned the county's queer prom and queer homecoming, as well as a series of arts nights. And Ava Helmold, I'm sorry, I probably butchered that, Helmold, attends UC Santa Cruz, excuse me, a little bit further away, Santa Cruz, where she has a double major in intensive psychology and global and community health. You see why I brought my notes up? She is the founder of Break the Stigma, a Marin-based campaign for LGBTQIA+ mental health. So please make them welcome.
Hi everyone, how is everyone doing today? So first of all, happy Pride to everyone. We are so grateful to be here, and today we will be talking about Pride in the modern day.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Graham Wood. As you know, I am a senior at San Rafael High School, and I am a queer youth advocate in Marin. I am the co-founder and president of the Queer Events Planning Team of Find Your Way, which is one of the main mental health organizations in Marin, which is founded by youth for youth. And we have been operating for 3 years and have hosted a yearly queer prom, as well as the Here and Queer art show and a series of events centered on queer joy. I also bring this activism into other parts of my life, as I am the president of the San Rafael High School GSA and have advised the president or principal in supporting the queer community of SR throughout this trying time. And while not to the same extent, I do have some experience with the kind of religious alienization that Ava will talk about, as my mother is from a deep South and highly religious and conservative family, and so that has always existed on the periphery of my life. And while my mom has done her best to separate herself from that, it does still remind me that there are many who are not as lucky as I am to be who they are with their family.
Hi everyone, I'm Ava Helmold. I'm an interdisciplinary researcher and queer advocate. I specifically focus on translational research, so that's bridging academia with practice and ensuring that the research that we do doesn't just stay in academic circles, but actually moves and affects the people that we're truly trying to change their lives and improve the quality of life. My research specifically focuses on sexual and gender diversity and mental health for queer and trans folks. And recently, my independent project, I presented it at Cornell University, UCLA, San Jose, and UCSC. And so, as mentioned, I'm a student of intensive psychology and global and community health, and I do a lot of research on those topics. But my journey actually started in Marin County. I live just 5 minutes away, and I went to high school in the area, and I grew up in a lot of conservative religious spaces that often told me, whether directly or indirectly, that I didn't belong, whether that meant that God didn't love me, God didn't accept me, or that I was being sinful because of who I was or who I loved. I grew up in a lot of Catholic spaces or really conservative Christian spaces as a queer individual, and so a lot of people pushed back on who I was or what I was saying, and I'm a very vocal person, and so I was not afraid, as Graham knows, to stand up for what I believe in and for who I am. And so for a lot of queer people like myself, religious and spiritual spaces often feel unsafe, or we feel very tentative to step into them fully, or feel like we need to hide parts of ourselves to be in spiritual spaces. And this was true for me for a very long time because of my experiences with more conservative family members, or experiences with conservative teachers or professors that told me very homophobic things or transphobic things to my face or behind my back. And so I've come full circle with this in my own journey and my spiritual journey, and now I've found a very affirmative queer church, and I'm very proud to call myself a queer Christian. And today I am the founder and director of Break the Stigma, which is a queer campaign based in Marin, and I currently work as a hotline counselor for 988, which is the National Suicide and Crisis Line.
So while there has been so much progress in the last 50 years in queer rights and queer activism, it is far from fixed. And this is sometimes hard to see in such an accepting place as Marin, but it is bad out there, to be honest. According to a 2023 study, nearly half of queer adults are alienated from their family. And many, many queer youth report feeling unsafe at school and have reported anti-LGBTQ+ hate speech. And this has been on the rise to almost the same levels that it has been in the 90s or 2000s. And this has also been spurred on by legislative actions with the current administration, as the ACLU currently is tracking 529 anti-LGBTQ+ bills around the US, 6 of which are in California. And over 100 bills have been targeting trans people specifically since 2020. And now, as of 2026, being radically pro-transgender is considered an act of terrorism under the 2026 US counterterrorism strategy. So these 50 years of progress have been almost fully reverted in the past 2 years.
Yeah. And keeping all of that in mind, as you might know, our environments like these that Graham was talking about greatly impact our mental health. Our mental health is the essential foundation of our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. And for sexual and gender diverse folks, mental health is deeply intertwined with our sense of identity, the strength of our community, and our capacity for resilience as we move through the world. And so facing unique challenges as queer folks, such as stigma, discrimination, and internalized shame, can very much take a toll on our mental health as we are facing, like Graham was talking about, this legislation and this anti-queer and trans rhetoric. And so queer individuals face higher rates of anxiety, depression, and suicidality. An example of this is LGBTQ+ adults are more than 2 times as likely to experience a mental health condition as compared to heterosexual adults, and that's from SAMHSA 2024. And again, we experience this because we navigate structures and systems that are not built with us in mind. We have to find providers, neighborhoods, jobs, schools that not only support who we are, but how we love and how we live. And so this is something that my most recent paper focused on, which is how social determinants of health impact sexual and gender diverse folks. So that's how our structural systems impact the way we move through the world. And this is especially true for queer and trans folks.
And while these negative effects are massive with queer people, it is extremely magnified for trans people. And because of this, gender-affirming care is so vital and is clinically proven to save lives. even just social support and social transition shows a greatly reduced rate in depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation in trans people. And medical transition has incredibly larger effects on mental health. And it is also, despite what many people are currently trying to make you think, incredibly safe. It is less than 2% of trans people report regretting it or detransitioning, and it is so much lower for people who have done medical transition that is irreversible. And this is because there is so much support and counseling before each step that it is almost impossible to go through these steps that will create permanent differences without knowing that you need and want that. And the American Association for Pediatrics reports that for children that are able to even just socially transition and go through affirmative care, their level of anxiety and depression is around the same as heterosexual children. So it almost fully gets rid of these effects that we have been talking about that affect queer people specifically.
So we know that gender-affirming care can save lives, but why does it save lives? And this is because stigma kills. In our current day and age, we are surrounded by harmful stigma and political rhetoric that is targeted towards transgender and gender diverse folks. And rather than saying it, I'd like to show you the reality of what we're facing. So nearly 40% of transgender adults have attempted suicide in their lifetime, compared to under 5% of the general population. So let's sit with that one. And this was from the National Center for Transgender Equality. 46% of transgender and non-binary youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year due to severe depression, and this is for youth. These stats are also higher for transgender elders who are a more vulnerable population. 71% reported a history of suicidal ideation. And as someone that works on the hotline as a counselor, this is very, very true for elder trans folks who often are at risk for that social isolation. And so it's very clear that stigma kills and that we must respond to this crisis that we're witnessing. So what is the opposite of stigma?
Is
queer resilience and joy. Yep.
Yes.
That is how we fight stigma, discrimination, and harmful rhetoric. So Graham, why do you think queer joy is important in this current climate?
Queer joy is really the best way that we can protect ourselves from all of the fear and pain and hate in the world and insulate ourselves from this. And it is also the best thing that you can do no matter what stage of life you are in. It will help you no matter if you are in crisis or completely fine at that point. So it is really the best overall way to support queer people. And what do you think about why queer joy is important?
I think that queer joy and resilience is super important, especially in terms of for mental health and for resilience in terms of suicide risk, especially for queer folks, as this is my focus, because resilience is recognized as one of the most protective factors, and as we call them in psychology, buffers against adverse like mental health conditions or poor mental health in general or suicidality. Having strong resilience, or one of the other leading theories in psychology is this concept of anti-fragility. So it's not just having resilience through adversity, but really taking your trauma or your adverse experience and growing from it and taking something really good from it. Like what Graham and I have done with our experiences, really taking it and taking it to the next level. Organizing, creating like queer events, becoming an organizer through advocacy, that is like anti-fragility. And so to me, that's what queer resilience and queer joy is. It's making it a protective factor or a buffer. Yeah, and so how do you think that we find joy in times like these? How do we even discuss such heavy topics like these, when we're facing policies and honestly administrations that seem to keep us down, that want to kill us continuously. What do you think, Graham?
I think it's really important to come together. You know, there are power in numbers, and you need to be able to foster that amount of support. And we both have done this in Marin with Queer Prom. We've hosted that 3 times. It's our biggest event. More queer joy than I've really felt any other time in my life in those rooms. And also through our Queer Arts Nights, which art is one of the most joyful experiences, and so coming together around that really fosters that joy. And then also showcasing this with the Here in Queer Art Show, which Ava actually founded, but we are continuing to showcase this joy to the greater community and show that we are still here and still strong.
Yeah. And really at the end of the day, these events allow us to organize as a community and really build upon each other's ideas and each other's resilience and joy. And yeah, these queer events allow us to really come together. And at the end of the day, Pride is more than a month. It's a movement. And so it's really important to have spaces like these.
And with that, it is also incredibly important to fund these, especially as a lot of the governmental support is going away. It is really falling on the members of the community to support themselves. And so it is really important to not put that burden on the people experiencing the issues that they are trying to fix, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, and on that note, coming from like the research side of things, and I also do a lot of like political organizing, I work with a lot of legislative representatives, we are seeing government funding being slashed left and right for mental health funding, for community support groups, and especially for research. We're seeing NIH grants getting cut, professors getting fired from universities for simply studying sexual and gender diversity. And so it's really important that we continue to advocate for these topics to be focused on, for these communities to be uplifted and supported and funded continuously. And that's something that all of us can do, not just queer folks. Just recently, Graham and I wrote in letters to the Board of Supervisors to be read at the Pride Resolution, advocating for more funding to be allocated to queer groups, to queer support. And so this is something that all of us can engage in. And so it's really important to give queer folks the opportunity to have this support. Yeah.
And with that, we just want to say how incredibly grateful we are for this opportunity and for your support. We hosted our most recent Queer Prom in this room, and we are so incredibly grateful for your continued support of our work. So thank you so much.
And then, of course, we also have some resources, local campaigns, orgs, nonprofits, and call text lines. If you'd like to take a photo or scan the QR code will lead you to this slideshow online. It's a public view link. And we also, got a bunch of text lines. Feel free to take a photo. And then, the next slide has our contact information, and we also will be available afterwards. But thank you so much for hosting us in this space and giving us the platform to speak about such important topics. Thank you so much, and happy Pride.
Happy Pride.